basically standardized access to publicly available data. There's a lot of data that's like available on the internet in some sort of capacity, whether it's released by governments, NGOs, just like companies as a whole. The problem is they don't release it in a standard way. So companies have a really hard time finding it, using it, connecting to it, and building it into their products and services. So what we do is we basically have built a platform that connects to any source, and then we transform the data to a standard format, and then with a common API can plug it into basically any business.
Is it a specific type of data? Are you targeting certain types of businesses?
We do basically any type of data. Publicly available data is where we start. So that's like anything from census data through StatsCan or US Census, all the way to like municipal points of interest. Like really we can do anything that anyone's releasing. Like we're doing this thing with Alberta where they're releasing oil and gas data, but the actual locations of mines and who's winning contracts for actually drilling licenses. So we can get that data as well, which is really good like market-related data on top of what someone like the TMX is pumping out. And if we mix the two together, that's where you're getting new insight.
Now, a lot of people are aware of how big data can help them, but maybe they don't know how to execute as far as how to use the data to their advantage. Do you do some education throughout that process?
Yeah, the companies that we kind of work with are companies that have like a little bit of a sophisticated big data shop. So they understand what big data is. They're organizing their own data internally or their proprietary data, and they're starting to run analytics on their own data. And then they look back and say, hey, there's a bunch of other data that's available in other places that we can use to enrich what we have internally. How do we actually get access to it? So they usually have data scientists who spend all their time doing analytics, building models. And they don't really have the time or capacity to go basically become a data janitor and go find and scrape this stuff and standardize it and bring it into their environment. So we take care of that whole pipeline of getting access to the data and give those data scientists just clean access to really high value data. Then they take our API, build it into whatever they're doing, and can automatically, derive insight out of it.
What's the financial model for your company?
Basically what we do is we deploy a platform for our larger enterprise clients. And then we manage the feeds of data into their environment and charge them on like a monthly recurring value for actually management of the data. So we can keep it updated in real time, daily, monthly, yearly, whatever, and how often the data is updated. And then they just basically connect directly to our API, and that's sort of how the model works.
What has been the reaction from some companies that you've helped?
The reaction, so this is an interesting question because I think everybody right now is seeing access to data as sort of a strategic advantage. So a lot of people don't like to talk about what they're doing with their data, or like us going around and saying like, oh, this company's done this amazing thing, because they see it as a competitive advantage that they're taking advantage of. But we're doing some cool stuff. Like the other day we found procurement contract data from governments. And we were working with a large bank here in Canada, and they sort of said, well, that would be great because any company that wins a government contract is actually worth our business. So chances are they're with one of the 5 big banks here in Canada. If they've won a big government contract, we should probably pick up the phone and call them and ask them if they're happy, or if they're exporting, do they need more services like a US bank account? And that's like a really cool example of how a company can leverage a public data set, and it can fuel like a completely new initiative within their organization.